It turns out we have been wrong about transgender athletes in sport, particularly when it comes to them competing against the gender they are now living as. And I really think that you and I might need to change our opinion. Now, when you think of trans athletes, you think of Leah Thomas, who was a male swimmer and then became a female swimmer, was terrible as a male, very, very good as a female. There's Fallon Fox, who was an MMA fighter and broke the face of many people. There was Lauren Hubbard, the weightlifter, who didn't really achieve anything in the men's, but when he became she, was doing very, very well. This person, Hannah Mouncey, destroyed the competition. And I think we can all really understand why people don't accept that this is fair, safe, or acceptable in any way. But what happens when it goes the other way? We've only really hypothesized about this. It's never been seen, I don't think, where a biological woman becomes male and then competes against men. That is unheard of. That is something that people go, well, we never see that. I've been guilty of that. I've said it in dozens of videos that I've made about this subject. I say, no, that's never happened. It's never going to happen because the vast majority of women can't compete with men. That's why you never see a woman going from mere obscurity in her sport, becoming a man and doing very, very well. Except for this. I have found someone who has done just that. And don't get me wrong, this person's not killing it by any means. This person's not, lighting the world on fire, all right? But they are performing as a man, formerly a woman, against other men. And I am all for it. But before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, this video is brought to you by me and my Patreon. Thank you very much to the almost 1,000 people who've decided to join our Patreon. I appreciate you. You get longer videos, uncensored videos. We talk about all the things that we cannot say on YouTube. For example, during this ad, I'm going to say something that I can't say on YouTube. Bleep everything, please, Producer Connor. There we go. You get access to comedy specials before they go live. You get access to comedy clips before they go live. You get to see absolutely everything, my ball sack not included. Ladies and gentlemen, head over to Patreon and just search my name, Isaac Butterfield, or the link is down below.
You might say an Olympic champion is overqualified to be playing on a local sporting field. And in Elia Green's case, you're probably right. But for the former women's rugby sevens star, it is the perfect place to be. Elia has returned to the sport as a man, playing against other blokes.
There it is. I can't believe it. We have been talking about this for years. It's always, without a doubt, men who are not performing very well, becoming women and then doing very, very well. They're becoming famous. They're damaging the competition. And that's just in contact sports. When it's not contact sports, say, for example, in running, they're just destroying the competition, or it's swimming, they're destroying the competition. All these young women have absolutely no chance. And that is what we've seen time and time and time again. But enter Ella Green. She was an Olympic gold medalist, a World Rugby Sevens Series champion, a top try scorer, and joined the New Zealand Warriors in the NRLW. Obviously a gun, obviously a great athlete and killing it against the ladies. But how will she do against the men?
You've represented Australia in rugby, you've won gold at the Olympics, but what would you consider the most significant game of footy you've ever played?
The gold medal match of the Rio Olympics, and then a very close second, if not on par, would have to be returning to rugby again and playing for the Convicts.
That's crazy. Imagine that, coming back into a sport you haven't played in a long time. You've had a huge amount of surgery, and we're also going to find out she's done something else that's has done something else that is pretty crazy considering they're coming back into this sport. Now, if you're coming back into a sport, it's nerve-wracking at any time after an injury or time off or whatever. But then to come back against the bigger, stronger, more dominant competitors, in this case the men, that has got to be absolutely fucking horrifying, all right? I imagine there was some fucking shriveled up dicks if he had one. Even though Ella may not have any, Ella has balls, all right? If you're willing to go and run a ball fast as you can, as straight as you can, right at some giant 110 kilo monster, then you've got balls. or you're a fucking idiot, right? I did that for a long time. I played rugby league, right? And it is a scary sport. It's not like the toughest sport in the world. Like it's not boxing, it's not MMA, but it is nerve-wracking to run as fast as you can into the biggest people you've ever seen. And that's what Ella's doing against men. So fucking good on him. Now, I did say at the start of this that I am absolutely fine with this. And you may be wondering why. Aren't I full of hate and bigotry? Well, no. You see, it turns out that pretty much everyone's okay with this. And this may shock a lot of people, but anyone who considers that it's not okay for a transgender person who is now living life as a woman, who was born a man, that it's not okay for them to compete against biological women. It turns out that those people who think like that, which includes me and probably you, we don't actually hate trans people. No, we just enjoy fairness. We just like the rules of the game to be adhered to and for people not to have some outrageous, unfair advantage over everybody else. Now, I know a lot of people say that, oh, well, you know, Michael Phelps or Michael Jordan, he had an advantage over the competition. Okay, well, that's a little bit different, all right? That's like if Michael Jordan, instead of being born like everybody else with 2 arms, was born with 3. In this case, I'm talking about the men who were born with a cock now competing against women. It's unfair based on so many principles, concepts, ideas, and physiology, okay? We're talking as... I know a lot of people say, oh, men can run faster, jump higher, hit harder. All true, but men also have thicker bones, higher VO2 max, bigger heads, more blood, a lot of different things. I can go on. There's literally a list of 1,000, all right? Even something as insignificant, it seems, as a narrower pelvis. Men have that, which makes running easier, so they can run faster, move quicker, step, jink, all that type of stuff with more ease than a woman. All of these things add up, ladies and gentlemen, and we're talking about a massive disadvantage. And when we're talking about heavier bones and thicker all that shit, when you're talking about a contact sport, like in this video with rugby or with MMA or boxing, you're talking about actual physical damage. And that is why it is unfair. But when a woman becomes a man, that doesn't happen. What physical advantages are there to being a woman over a man? Well, I'm sorry to say this, absolute zero. There is no other benefit. And that's not putting shit or throwing shade at women. It's just accurate. So if you're willing to go from being a woman to competing against men, then fucking go for it. Best of luck. One small caveat, testosterone. Okay? And you will see this later in the video. Okay? Ella may or may not be using testosterone. You just wait for that part of the video. Because it's impressive, all right? And the reality of the situation is most likely this. Ella's running around with more testosterone than most of the blokes out there. That's probably accurate, which means you can build more muscle and more aggression, all that type of shit. So, let's continue.
This time, he's competing as a man against other men after transitioning 3 years ago.
I can tell you right now, I was probably equally as nervous as I was to stand in the tunnel for the Rio Olympics.
Just looking at Ella here, this is the issue with the whole transgender bathrooms debate. It would be, even though that Ella was, 3 years ago, a female, living life as a female, using the female bathrooms, I would imagine. It would be ridiculous for Ella to walk into a woman's bathroom today. Why? Because it's so obvious, or at least he looks exactly like a man. In fact, it would be confronting for Ella to walk into the female bathroom because people would be like, why is this dude in here? Which, again, goes back to the issue that we are speaking about here. No one hates trans people. No one's saying that trans people shouldn't feel comfortable. What we're saying is they shouldn't be in the women's bathroom, where they shouldn't be in women's sport. I think this is what this all boils down to, protecting women, which is, it should be at the very least, a very male thing. That should be the highest level of our jobs as toxic men, is to protect women. That's what we should be doing, and that's what we have done for tens of thousands of years now. We probably don't need to as much, but we probably still have it inbuilt in us. that we're not okay with this shit. So after the Olympics, and then she didn't get picked for the next Olympics, but she was still playing sport, these type of things, her mum got really sick. And Ella decided that, you know what, I think her mum passed away pretty quickly. And Ella was like, fuck it, I'm going to live my life how I want to live it. I'm going to be a man. And she started living life as a man. But before she did that, she did two things. She lopped the titties off. And that's how I imagine it happens. And she had a baby, which is awesome. Good fucking on her. Now him, the dad. But you did have it out of a vagina, I imagine, or at the very least you had to put something in your vagina to have the baby. So we're going to call you a mum in that respect, but now you're living life as a dad. I'm playing fucking chess here in my mind, trying to make this sound polite, but you know what I'm fucking saying.
That's right. Elliot decided to add another life-changing event to the mix, welcoming his first child, Waitui, into the world in 2022.
That's beautiful. Good fucking on her. That's wonderful. But why cut your tits off and then have a baby? That doesn't really make any sense. But I guess it does make sense from this standpoint. If you're going to start pumping testosterone into your system, you decided to become a man, it would make sense to have a baby before you do that, because TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, well, basically your chances of falling pregnant on that is very, very slim. It suppresses ovulation. There's a thinning of the uterine lining. There's decreased ovarian function. So pregnancy is very, very unlikely. So it would make sense to have a baby before that. And also, if you have too much testosterone in your system, high dose testosterone is tetragenic, which means it can cause birth defects, particularly virilization of a female fetus. So you don't want to do this. And I would imagine that Ella knew this. Ella seems pretty switched on. So I hope so anyway.
I'm constantly just reminding myself, like, what do I want my Tui to see me as? What kind of father? What kind of role model?
And what's the answer to that?
To be brave.
Elliot didn't just want to talk the talk. He wanted to prove to his daughter and the world he was proud to be his true self.
Okay, by looking at that, you can now decide whether or not Ella was pumping a fuck ton of testosterone in or just a little bit. I'm going to go with the first option there, allegedly. So, all in all, Ella sounds like a lovely role model for his daughter. So, good fucking on him. I think that's great. And as a father, he will probably do a great job, I bet. Sounds like a lovely person. Like, genuinely loves this child. So that's probably the best first step.
Elliot never thought he'd be back on the field, but a call from an old coach led him to the Sydney Convicts, Australia's first gay and inclusive rugby union club.
Hey, group hug in the showers tonight. But yeah, I played rugby league for a long time and it was pretty gay for me in a straight team, so I imagine this is real gay. How good. Good on yous. Enjoy.
You're running out against other men. What were you expecting?
I was expecting myself to make some hits. I was expecting myself to run it straight. And I was expecting myself to score a try.
I fucking like Ella. That is a great attitude, mate. Good on you.
But it has happened since, and more than once.
Killing it, mate. Competing hard. And I think most of you watching this, let me know if you don't, but most of you watching this I'm sure you agree with me. Like, this is fine. This is 100% above board. Ella's taking the step up to compete against the men rather than taking a step, no offense, down to compete against the women. And I think that is why it is absolutely cool. And yes, Ella is benefiting from testosterone, but I bet there's blokes on there on tests in this competition anyway. I know when I played, there was fucking blokes juiced to the gills all the time.
So now that you're competing in men's competition, have you caught backlash, like you shouldn't be allowed to because you were a woman?
No, I haven't.
Because it's not the same at all. And this just adds to everyone's argument that we, as people who think that maybe biological men shouldn't compete against biological women, aren't doing this because we don't like trans people. We're just doing it because it's not okay. It's not fair and it is dangerous. We just call bullshit where we see it, and we're not afraid of people saying that you're a bad person because of it. Sometimes the truth is important. And that's what I think this is all about. This is all about people who are willing to express what they actually think rather than saying what everyone wants them to say.
Because I mean, the argument then we hear with men who've transitioned to women is that they have that unfair physical advantage in contact sport. It's a safety issue. Do you think there's merit in that?
Obviously there is.
That's why I'm very careful when talking about this topic. It is a very touchy subject, obviously, but I won't speak on matters that concern a trans woman because I am not a trans woman.
That's a massive cop-out. Can I just say that? What, because you're not one of those exact people, you can't have an opinion? It's not fair, it's not safe, it's dangerous, and you know that.
Do you think it's harmful having an opinion on whether trans women compete against other women at this point?
Where a lot of this harm is coming from is the unknown. People can have opinions, but if it's at the cost of someone's life, identity and self, like what good is that doing?
Hang on. What has that got to do with anything? The truth is the truth. Accuracy is important. Just because it affects someone or offends someone or upsets someone doesn't mean we shouldn't say it. Okay, but maybe in polite society we don't bring it up, but when it's such a massive conversation piece, for us to hold that information back, hold the actual thoughts that we have back, is absolutely ridiculous. And anyone who does that is very weak. That's what that is. That is weakness. You're lying to not only people in front of you, but you're lying to yourself. And you know what? What Ella just said there, let's remove the word opinions. These are not opinions. These are facts. This is knowledge that we know, okay? This isn't me just saying men have thicker bones because I think they might. No, this is very well known, all right? And thicker bones with stronger muscles, fast twitch muscles, produce more force. Simple as that. So when you're talking about a biological man competing against a biological woman, it's dangerous. Simple.
So to answer the question, like trans people should be able to play sport, like yes, take away trans, like should a person be able to play sport? Yes.
What? Come on, Ellie, you're doing so well. This conversation continues throughout the world, and I don't really see a way out of it. With so many people deciding that, no, we need to encourage transgender youth to compete against people who they feel they are the exact same gender as, this will never stop. Thankfully, a lot of people, particularly in junior competitions, we're going to see this a whole lot more, but obviously in the professional leagues, thankfully people are putting their hand up and saying, no, this isn't okay, this isn't safe, this isn't good enough. And I think down the track, it will also affect insurance when it comes to female athletes competing against biological men. If you have a whole team of biological men playing against your team of biological women, then you're going to have to bump your medical insurance up, right? This is going to cost people money. This is going to cost people successes, accolades, and probably knock a lot of young women out, well, probably literally, but also out of competitions, meaning they won't get the scholarships, they won't get the benefits of better coaches, they won't win, yada, yada, yada. They'll ruin their fucking confidence. It is not good. It's not okay. All the best to Ella, but I think Ella needs to come up with some better opinions on the transgender subject. Ladies and gentlemen, be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East, be extinct. Toodaloo, au revoir. Bye-bye. That's the end of the video. Goodbye.